It's time for your daily LSU baseball update with Musso at the box. Now, Matt Musso.
And welcome into another edition of Musso at the box. LSU gets set to begin their second set of 4 games here in the early part of the 2024 season on Thursday. This is the back half of their 8 games in the first 10 days of the season portion of the schedule. They will welcome in the Northern Illinois Huskies and the Stony Brook Seawolves. We have a lot to get to today because we have to preview Northern Illinois. We have to preview Stony Brook. And Jay Johnson, met with the media. There's a bit of a change to the rotation. We have to talk about that. We have to talk about everything you want to see from LSU this weekend. It's jam-packed, y'all. Jam-packed. And it's a great time, now that we're underway in the season, to get subscribed to the Musso at the Box YouTube channel if you haven't, and also a great time to get subscribed up to the Musso at the Box podcast in general if you haven't. Wherever you get your podcasts, it's there. Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever. Musso at the Box, subscribe up. And, of course, the YouTube channel. If you're watching right now, go subscribe. Smash that like button as well. Hit the bell when you subscribe. Share the video. Share the podcast. All of that helps. Follow me on Twitter at Musso Matthew. All of that helps. On Facebook, Matt Musso. All of that helps, and it's greatly appreciated. Now, we have so much to get to. We got to dive right in. I'm curious. I haven't really decided totally where I want to start. I mean, we could start by, talking about the rotation changes. We could start by, previewing these teams. What I really want to do is kind of just weave it all together. All right. When we're going through starting pitching matchups, that's when we'll talk about the rotation and things of that nature. So that's kind of what I want to do. I kind of want to weave it all in. So obviously there's going to be 4 teams at the box this weekend. LSU will play 2 of them. LSU, Northern Illinois, Stony Brook, and Northwestern State. NIU and Stony Brook will each play a doubleheader with we'll each play 2 games against Northwestern State, while LSU plays the 2 games against Stony Brook and Northern Illinois. Pardon me. So that's kind of how that will be made up. Let's start Thursday's game. LSU, Northern Illinois, 2:00 first pitch. A little bit of background for you here. So this will be the 18th meeting between LSU and Northern Illinois. The Tigers lead that series 12-5 overall. NIU's coming off a dreadful year in 2023. There's no other way to put it. They were 10-43 in 2023, 5-24 in the MAC. So, yes, we have MACtion at the box this week, and they hit .251 last year as a club and pitched to an ERA of 8.95. They have a new head coach this season. That tends to happen if you only win 10 games out of 53. That is Ryan Copeland. Ryan Copeland comes to Northern Illinois from Division II University, Illinois, Springfield. He inherits a team that, as we said, went 10-43, but returns 31 players, including 16 seniors. We're going to talk a lot about those players here today because it's a very veteran club. They were picked to finish 10th out of 11 teams in the MAC. They have started their season 1-3. They played 4 games against Abilene Christian last weekend and 1-3. In those games, it was, they lost the first 3 and won the 4th one. In those first 3, they fell behind pretty early and just never really got going. In game number 4, they jumped out to the big lead and were able to hold on. So let's look a little bit at Northern Illinois, continue this overview here, and then we'll get into some individuals and the probable pitching matchups and things of that nature. So we talked about the returning players, right? 4 of their top 5 hitters are back from last year, and they return. It's somewhere in the neighborhood. Forgive me, I thought I had it written down. I don't. Somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 to 12 pitchers as well from last year's club. So it's a lot of players back, veteran team, but a lot of players back from a bad team. Does that really play? Well, we're going to get our answer. The probable pitching matchup. Let's start with Thursday's game. Thursday's game, it stands to reason it will be transfer right-hander Adam Brewer. And this is why I say that. So Brewer, he got the game one start for Northern Illinois last week. It did not go great for him. He only lasted 3 2/3, gave up 5 earned. He got shelled pretty good. But it's week 2. You're not going to really force your hand on a rotation change there too much. And the important thing about that is this is the head coach's boy. He came to Northern Illinois with Ryan Copeland from Illinois Springfield. So you have a Division II transfer on the bump, most likely, was very good at Illinois Springfield. 7-3 record, a sub-4 ERA, very good there. But again, like we said, got off to a really rough start. I would imagine, though, because, he's basically handpicked by the new head coach. It's a guy that he trusts to go out there and start game one. It would make sense that he does. When you look at, the rest factor for him, he would be on 1 day short rest. They started their series on a Friday last week. I only bring that up because Jay Johnson's going to bring that up in a cut you're about to hear. But I don't think it would be really anything else because they don't have a choice. They have to move somebody up, in a sense, unless they want to give somebody their first start. And again, facing the defending national champion, I don't think you're going to do that. I think he's going to go with a guy that he really, really trusts, and that's Adam Brewer. If it's not Adam Brewer, I think it'll be Tommy Meyer. So Tommy Meyer was number 2 in their rotation last year. He's a lefty returner for Northern Illinois. Also got beat up pretty good. Identical 3 2/3, identical 5 earned runs allowed in that ballgame. The difference is he was able to strike out a few more people. When you look at a guy like Tommy Brewer, he averaged a strikeout per inning last season for Northern Illinois, and made 16 appearances. So veteran guy, veteran arm, throws from the left side. But again, I think it will be Adam Brewer, not Tommy Meyer. But if it's not Adam Brewer, I think it will be Tommy Meyer. One of those two guys that LSU will face on Thursday. Now, for LSU on the bump, this is where it gets interesting. Jay Johnson, when he met with the media on Wednesday, talked a little bit about, we didn't talk about it, he announced his starting rotation for this weekend with a change at the top.
Jump is going to throw Thursday against Northern Illinois. Hurd is going to throw Friday against Stony Brook. Holman is going to throw Saturday against Northern Illinois, and then TBA for Sunday. This time of year, I just didn't want to move anybody up that threw 60-plus pitches.
That makes sense. I get it. So, first and foremost, I'm fired up for Gage Jump to get this start. I really could not be any more fired up for Gage Jump to get this start for a couple of different reasons. Number one, did you watch him pitch last week on opening day? It was freaking electric. Like, that's what it looks like. We use that phrase here so much. That's what it looks like. The ball jumps out of his hand at 96 with the fastball. It's got great life, great carry through the zone. And when he wants to drop that slider on you, he can. He's got 4 pitches. He profiles as a starter. When you watch him, when you just look at him, he passes the eye test as a starter. He looks like a front of the rotation guy. We've talked about that ever since he made his debut. And earlier this week on a previous show, we were talking about what LSU does with the rotation. And I went through it kind of comparing it to last year when they brought Thatcher Hurd back in a very similar situation where he had missed the entire year prior coming back from Tommy John, and they wanted to bring him along slowly. But you knew at some point he's got to be in your rotation. And what they did with Thatcher Hurd was, he was kind of in the quote-unquote midweek role through the first 3 weeks of the season. And then when they got to that last non-conference weekend, or pre-conference weekend, I should say, they had him in the rotation. And I thought they'd do something very similar with Gage Jump. This week, having 4 games allows you to expedite that a little bit, which I think is awesome. I don't think this means that Jump's going to be in the rotation next week when you go to Houston, but right now this is an opportunity to get his feet wet and get him a start. And I think it's awesome. I think that's great. I think that's exactly what they need to do if you're LSU. The question is, well, was there a pitch count? Is there an inning count? Because you're still trying to ramp him up. And, well, Gage Jump answered that question himself?
I would say close to around 45, 50. 2, hopefully 3 if I'm pretty efficient. And then I'll kind of finish up with some more volume and on the side after. And then for the weeks coming forward, I'm not sure.
So there you go. 45 to 50 pitches, 2 to 3 innings from Gage Jump. It's a great luxury that LSU has with the depth on the staff. They can do that at the front of a 4-game week, mind you. Like, they're putting a guy out there who's on a pitch count at the front of a 4-game week. It's an embarrassment of riches that they have on this pitching staff. And then he'll go do some work after. It's similar to what we talked about with Cade Anderson all throughout the scrimmages, where he would, start a scrimmage, hit his mark that they wanted him to, and then he'd immediately go to the bullpen and finish up. Gage Jump might do something similar, but even there, he said, I don't know what's going to happen the rest of the way. So let's take this one thing at a time. But this is huge for him throwing. Let me look it up. I'm sorry, I didn't. I gotta pull this back up. For how many pitches he threw, I think he threw, off the top of my head, I think Gage Jump threw 11 pitches on opening day. While I look this up, here was Gage Jump talking about his reaction to getting the start.
Yeah, I'm super excited. With Coach Johnson and Coach Yeski, we've been conservatively kind of ramping myself up, and now that I'm able to start and get some innings in there, I'm super pumped about it, and yeah, it'll be fun.
So, super pumped about it. Great. So are we, Gage. We're fired up. He did. He threw 11 pitches on opening day. Trust your gut, Musso. So, for him to be able to go from 11 pitches now to 45-50, that's a really solid ramp up right there. Like, that's a jump, all right? So, it's a great jump, too, by the way. But my point with this is that's a great track for him to be on. And that's another reason I'm fired up for this, because I keep saying Gage Jump has to be in your starting rotation. I know he looked great at the back end of the bullpen. I understand. Don't care. That guy has to be in your starting rotation. So, if he can hit that number, 45-50, next week in some capacity, whether it's midweek, whether it is getting a start in Houston against Texas, ULL, Texas State, or not, the next time he goes, you would expect him to be able to lengthen a little bit more, and then a little bit more. And starting this at 45-50 and having 3 weeks left until conference play starts is a perfect ramp up to where if you stick to that, that's a guy that can be ready full go for you week 1 of SEC play when you head to Starkville. And if it were up to me, would be in the starting rotation that week, provided there's no setbacks, there's no nothing that goes haywire. So fired up to see what Gage Jump can do in the starting rotation this week for LSU, getting the ball on Thursday for 45 to 50 pitches. Okay, so I'm predicting there Adam Brewer, Gage Jump. I should note, Northern Illinois has not announced their rotation at the time that I am recording. At the time that I am recording this. Fast forward to Saturday. That's the next time LSU will play Northern Illinois. It would make a lot of sense that that's going to be Jacob Wild for the Huskies. Senior lefty, really fit into their rotation last year, made 8 starts out of his 9 appearances. He's not going to overpower anybody. Like last year, 23 strikeouts in 33 innings. He's that crafty lefty, but he's that crafty lefty that's in the zone. It's a lot like we talked about with Trey Morgan when we looked at VMI. Crafty lefty, not going to overpower, but he's in the zone. In the zone so much that teams hit 418 off of him last year. LSU should have plenty of opportunity to swing the sticks against a guy like Jacob Wild. But it should be noted, he's off to a really hot start right now through 1 start. He pitched the game that they won against Abilene Christian, pitched into the 5th inning at 4 1/3, only gave up 2 runs, walked 1, and struck out 7. He got the no decision. So it's 1 start coming off that year. Like the larger sample size, obviously last year for Jacob Wild, but he's doing pretty good so far here in 2024. But again, the breakdown doesn't really change. Crafty lefty who's going to be in the zone and not overpower you. So LSU should be able to be very aggressive against a guy like Jacob Wild. On Saturday for LSU, it will be Luke Holman. You heard that in the cut from Jay Johnson. It will be Luke Holman on Saturday facing Northern Illinois. I mean, it's hard to do what you did. I mean, just keep the consistency going. I don't know if Luke Holman's going to go out there and strike out 10 again like he did, but I'd like to see him, start to lengthen a little bit more. He threw 87 pitches, so can you get him to 95, 100 this week? I think that's plenty doable. Keep pounding the zone if you're Luke Holman. It's going to be a much different day that he'll pitch on. Weather-wise, it's not going to be 45 degrees with the wind blowing in. It's going to be beautiful all weekend at Alex Box Stadium. So that will be interesting how he adjusts. He might have to be a little bit more fine, but Luke Holman was so dominant. It's just, hey man, I don't know if you're going to replicate that exactly, but just go out there and keep up the consistency that LSU looks for out of a veteran arm and in the middle of that rotation. So looking forward to that with Holman going there. Okay, before we move to the Stony Brook portion of this, let's finish previewing Northern Illinois. Let's look at some key bullpen arms to watch here this weekend for the Huskies. First of all, overall stats here on the Husky pitching staff in 2024. Through 4 games, they have a team ERA of 10.98. They have walked 28 in 30 and a third innings pitched. That is an extremely high number, but they are averaging about a strikeout per inning. Teams are hitting 365 off of the Huskies. It has been a big struggle through 4 games for them on the mound, as it was last season as a whole. Couple bullpen arms to keep an eye on. Junior righty Mason Ruh. Ruh led the Huskies, or Ruh, I don't know. I actually have a beef with Northern Illinois real quick. They don't have a pronunciation guide anywhere on their website. I couldn't find game notes. They got some pretty odd names on this team, and a pronunciation guide would have been helpful, okay? It's coming from a state where we have some pretty odd names, we always provide a pronunciation guide. Clean it up, Northern Illinois Sports Information. Anyway, Ruh, it's R-U-H, however you want to say it. He led the Huskies in innings pitched in 2023. He's back. So that's big. It's always, when we're looking at a pitching staff and what you're having to replace, we're not talking about arms so much as how many innings do you have to replace. Well, they have their leading innings guy back this season, junior righty Mason Ruh. He tied for second on the team in appearances as well, and leads this team early with 2 appearances. He had 1 good outing, 1 bad outing, so the results are kind of mixed, coming in with an ERA of 9, but teams are hitting 429. Team, I should say, is hitting 429 off of him with Abilene Christian. Kind of similar to what we talked about with Wild, except from the right side. He's not overpowering, but he's going to consistently be in the zone, and you need to be aggressive because he's going to be in the zone, and Abilene Christian had a field day. I expect LSU to be able to as well because they're a much better lineup than Abilene Christian. Junior righty Matt Solomonson is another guy that we want to keep an eye on. He's a veteran arm returning, made 14 appearances in 2023. Nothing really jumps off the page. He's just a solid contributor. Reagan Lewitter is how we're going to go with that. Redshirt senior lefty. He led this team, the Northern Illinois, in appearances last year with 20, but he seems pretty much like a matchup guy. He only threw 22 and a third in that 20 appearances, and he has 1 appearance so far here in 2023, and it went well. I mean, he gave up 2 unearned runs and only threw a third of an inning. So again, shows you the matchup that we think he is. And then the last pitcher to highlight that I have here, senior righty Jacob Drager. He was 4th on the team in innings last year. So again, shows you what they return. They return a lot, and he's off to a really nice start. 1 appearance so far, but it was 2 shutout innings that appearance. Struck out 1, didn't walk anybody. He was very good. So LSU should see that guy at some point, and I would imagine in game number 1 of the series. Let's look at some position players to watch because they have a few returners who really stand out. Told you they returned 4 of the 5 leading hitters from last year. We're going to start with the senior catcher, Colin Summerhill. This is their guy to circle and put a big star by. Colin Summerhill. He led the team last season in batting average, slugging percentage, home runs, doubles, and RBI. In fact, he was top 10 in the MAC in doubles and RBI. So, and how about this? First Husky to have a 50 RBI season since 2004. So not only did he lead the team in virtually everything, he was setting, he was doing firsts that hadn't happened in almost 2 decades. So incredible stuff from him, and he's off to a great start here so far this season as well. At 313 with 2 homers, 5 RBI, and a double. The 2 home runs and the 5 RBI lead this ball club. So he's picked up right where he left off. Colin Summerhill put a big circle around that guy. Senior third baseman Aaron Harper, he's still searching for his first hit so far this season, but closed last year on an 11-game hit streak, hit 307, and while he wasn't the leading hitter in batting average, he led NIU in hits with 62. That's Aaron Harper. And then senior infielder Eric Arato led the team in on base and set a single-season walks record with 51. You're going to need to keep this kid off the base paths. He's the action guy. 47 runs scored, 25 steals. That led the team. He should hit near the top of the lineup. They've moved him around a little bit. They also returned their middle infielders, but, I mean, they're not off to great starts this season. Their numbers last year didn't really stand out either. But if I'm looking at how LSU needs to attack this Northern Illinois lineup, obviously, look, don't let Colin Summerhill beat you, but you got to keep Eric Arato off the bases just because he can get on so many different ways. I mean, again, like we said, program single-season record with walks, 51. He's going to be really tough at bat. He's going to make you work. He's not going to chase. But when he does get on base, he can really jumpstart that offense. So LSU did a great job controlling the running game last week. I think they can absolutely do that again. But you're going to need to keep him off base at the top 3 in that lineup because he can really get things started when he's there. As a team, the offensive numbers, they don't jump off the page at you. Through 4 games, they hit 234. They've scored 30 runs, 5 homers. They're striking out in 36% or so of their at bats. So it's not it's just nothing's going to really jump off the page at you as a team, but they do have some really solid returning players who are veteran and have seen a lot of baseball. So that's LSU, Northern Illinois. A few things to watch in those games. We'll give you an overall here as we wrap things up. We got to get moving here a little bit, though. Let's talk about the Stony Brook Seawolves. Boy, aren't we all very familiar with the Stony Brook Seawolves. This will be meeting number 5 all time. It will be the first regular season meeting between LSU and the Seawolves. Of course, famously knocked off the Tigers in 2012 in a home super regional, making their first trip to Omaha. I think Willie Carmona actually just hit another double off the wall in the box, and Travis Jankowski probably just made another diving catch. That was a miserable weekend. I don't really want to relive it any more than that. LSU's last meeting with Stony Brook happened in the 2019 regional opener. LSU dispatched of them quite easily there. So here we go. First regular season meeting between the Tigers and the Seawolves. Looking at Stony Brook last season, 23-29, 14-16 in the Coastal Athletic Association. They hit 279, scored 7 runs a game, had an ERA of 6.70. When you look at them this season, they also played 4 games in their opening weekend, all 4 against Purdue, also went 1-3. They struggled holding leads. They late in the game, it got away from them. They lost the first game, won the second, and then lost the last 2. And when you go back, when you look, the first game, they were never in it. They got shut out 6-0. But when you look at the rest of them, the third and fourth game, it really got away from them late. They had a lead at some point in that game, in each of them, and they just could not hold it. They are the opposite from NIU in the sense that they do not return a whole lot, and specifically on the mound. Stony Brook this season is having to replace 298 innings out of 456 and 2/3. So about 2/3 of their inning. They only return 158. So keep that in mind. 298 of their innings they have to replace. That's 2/3 of what they pitched last year. Now, on the position player side, they have 3 guys returning who are very good. Evan Fox, who we will talk an awful lot about here momentarily. He was all-conference preseason. Matt Brown-Earing was all-conference honorable mention preseason. And Brett Paulson also all-conference honorable mention preseason. We'll get a little bit deeper into those. Stony Brook picked to finish 8th out of 12 teams in the Coastal. Probable starting pitchers. On Friday is when LSU will face Stony Brook for the first time. That will be a 2 p.m. first pitch as well. And I'll give you a couple guys that you could see. It stands to reason for me it's going to be Ty Saunders, so I'll start with him. He's a graduate transfer right-handed pitcher from Portland. He was a two-way player for the Pilots over there in Portland. Stony Brook seems to have him PO'd, pitcher only. Appeared in 6 games as a pitcher last season for Portland. Only threw 13 and a third innings, had an ERA north of 11, really got hit around, and that was the only season that he's pitched in college was last year. So it's a very small sample size, and for what it's worth, he got roughed up against Purdue. He did pitch into the 6th inning, but gave up 4 earned, struck out 5. So it wasn't a great start for Ty Saunders. That's who I expect you to see because he pitched the second game of the doubleheader last week for Stony Brook. As well. It was the game that they won that he pitched in. So that's Ty Saunders. I don't have a lot on him just because the sample size is so small. I'm a righty. I look at you, Jason Ackman. He's not going to overpower you. About a strikeout per inning type guy. But it's interesting to see him potentially have to take the swings against LSU. If it's not him, they do have a game at 10 a.m. on Friday against Northwestern State that I guess he could pitch because, again, it wouldn't change the rest for him or Eddie Smink. Eddie Smink is a sophomore righty who, as a freshman was settled into that rotation, made 9 starts, pitched 61 and 2/3 innings last year. So he just makes sense to move into that front of the rotation spot, right? He went 5 innings versus Purdue. Only gave up the 3 runs, but again, roughed up a little bit. Threw 91 pitches. That's something that stood out about Stony Brook's arms. They threw a lot of pitches. They extended their guys week 1. So, look, if they're going to be able to go, they got a longer leash maybe than you would normally see at the beginning. So, I think it's Saunders, but if it's not, it's Smink, who's their front of the rotation, quote-unquote ace guy on Friday. For LSU on Friday, it will be Thatcher Hurd. Of course, Hurd will make his second appearance. Got an ERA of 13.5. Made 2 2/3 innings last week. Gave up the 4 earned runs and was knocked out after that. A lot of people, because of how it went haywire, are wondering about Thatcher Hurd. Is there a concern level? Jay Johnson was asked that very question at his immediate availability on Wednesday, and here's what he said.
I think the best takeaway for me was I thought he was in control of himself. Like the game didn't turn into a mess of him walking people. Like we walked the guy, the 9-hitter on 3-2 count. It was a pretty close pitch. Like if he would have got rung up, nobody would have said anything on it. And then we had the balk, and then they put together 4 good at bats, and I thought that would be an exact spot where we would bring Justin into a game. So I just literally just coached that like I would a regular game. We probably could have left him in, and he might have turned it around and done fine. That's just me doing my job. So I came out of that not too worried. I thought he was in control of himself and good pattern forward. So I'm not alarmed by that at all.
It's the same thing we said here when we recapped the weekend. He was in control. It got away from him. They were a good hitting lineup. It snowballed on him a little bit. Would you have liked to have seen that not happen? Of course. But he wasn't out there walking everybody like he did last year when he struggled. He was attacking still. That's what I want to see from Thatcher Hurd. You got to have a big bounce back from him, but just attack. Keep that same mentality that you had and go attack. These lineups that you're going to face this weekend for LSU pitching, they're not to the standard of anything that you saw last week with VMI. They just aren't. So with that in mind, go attack. If you're Thatcher Hurd, do what you were doing. You were pounding the strike zone, and you will face some adversity, but just don't let it get you down. I look for a big bounce back from Thatcher Hurd. I'm fired up to see him, and I like Jay Johnson, as we again talked about after recapping his start of that Friday opening day. While the result on paper doesn't look good, when you actually watched him pitch, it did look better than it did early in the season last year when he was going through struggles. So that'll be your pitching matchup on Friday. Thatcher Hurd for LSU versus either Ty Saunders or Eddie Smink for Stony Brook. Let's go to Sunday. And for Sunday, LSU has TBA in that spot. I think it's one of two guys. It's either Javen Coleman or Cade Anderson, and whichever one doesn't get the start, they might pitch out of the bullpen at some point this weekend and then probably start that midweek game at Rice next week. That's kind of the luxury that you have, or hell, maybe Gage Jump starts that midweek game next week. But I think it's probably either one of Coleman or Anderson. So Coleman or Anderson on Sunday, and do what you did. They both had great outings, man. Just keep building on that, keep extending. For a guy like Anderson, he's coming off injury. You want to see him continue to progress in that way. Kind of the same thing with Javen Coleman. So I really don't have many worries or many things to really say. I guess the one thing I would want out of Anderson is to get back to really pounding the zone. Let's see if he can get himself a little bit more under control, not be as amped up, get the walk number down a tad, and then with Coleman, maybe have a little bit better feel for the breaking ball. He didn't have a great feel for the breaking ball the opening weekend against VMI, but still threw 3 shutout innings. And then get those guys to extend a little bit more too. But I feel great about either of those guys in a Sunday spot for LSU here. If I had to guess, I would say Javen Coleman would be my official prediction. For Sunday, it's going to be freshman lefty, most likely freshman lefty Nicholas Rizzo for Stony Brook. He had a really rough debut against Purdue. This is all I've got on him. He gave up 8 earned and 5 2/3 through 94 pitches, got the L. He's a freshman. They don't even have a bio up for him on their website. So that's it. That's probably who LSU is going to face, though. So, yay. All right, let's finish this Stony Brook preview here, go through some players to watch, and then we'll give you what we're watching for LSU this week and what we want to see in our official prediction. Bullpen names. So Stony Brook, they have only pitched 12 pitchers here, and as we told you, they're replacing 2/3 of their innings. They have 18 pitchers on the roster, so you could see some guys make debuts. I only have 2 to really highlight. They're 2 of the few returners. We'll start with junior righty JT Rabb. He led the team in appearances last year. He could strike you out as well. 43 Ks last year and 32 1/3 innings. He's off to a really nice start this year as well. Opponents hitting 182 off of him that opening weekend. Has thrown 2 1/3 innings already and has a 0 ERA. So that's a guy to definitely keep an eye on is JT Rabb from Stony Brook. And then senior righty Quinlan Montgomery. He's another returner. Got beat up pretty good in 2023 last season, but he's off to a much better start. He's pitched 1 inning, but he struck out the side in that 1 inning last week. So that's Quinlan Montgomery. And like I said, you're probably going to see some debuts from some guys. 18 pitchers on that roster, and only 12 of them have pitched. All right, let's talk about the position players to watch because, boy, there's plenty of them. And we're going to start with Evan Fox, who we told you is preseason all-conference. D1 Baseball has him ranked as the 33rd best second baseman in all of college baseball. He is what we talked about with the kid from Northern Illinois. This is their jump starter. He's going to hit leadoff. He reached base in 49 of 50 games last season. He set career highs in batting average, hits, runs, homers, RBI, and walks. How about this? He set a new program record in steals with 39. That was also second in the country last season. He passed Travis Jankowski, who, again, familiar name, should be to many LSU fans. Guy just won a World Series with the Rangers, too. Broke that guy's record and also broke Jankowski's career steal records. You got to keep him off base. You just have to. That guy jump starts their entire offense, and he's off to a very slow start this year, hitting .214. Keep Evan Fox off base at all costs if you're LSU. It's just what we talked about last season with the leadoff hitter from Kentucky. Forgive me, I cannot remember his name. Jackson something or another. He jump started that entire offense. Evan Fox does the same thing for Stony Brook. You have to keep him off base. Senior outfielder Matt Brown, airing all-conference honorable mention, also had a career year in 2023, and he's off to a scorching start. Like, he like Fox set career highs and, like, batting average and, home run, all that. He was second on the team in homers last year. Off to a scorching start in 2024. He's hitting .438 and leading the team with 9 RBI so far in 2024. Cam Cam Santeri, is their leading hitter at 556 so far, and then Evan Goforth is hitting 333 and has the only home run. You look at their offense as a team so far through 4 games, they're hitting 219, averaging 6 runs per game. Again, they have the 1 homer. They swiped 4 bags out of 4 attempts. And the pitching in 4 games, a 9 ERA, a 290 average against. They have only struck out 25 in 33 innings, and they've walked 20. It's just not – this is not the best competition LSU will face by far. But what are we looking for LSU to do here in this weekend? Let's start offensively. Let's start with the freshmen, Stephen Milam, Jake Brown. I want to see if those guys can keep it up. They should be able to. I mean, again, we've gone through these pitching numbers ad nauseum here on this show today, and it just hasn't been great for Stony Brook or Northern Illinois. So Brown, who's your leading hitter if you're LSU right now, Stephen Milam, who's your 3rd leading hitter, I want to see if those guys can build off of what they did last week. They set the world on fire opening weekend. If they do that, they're going to continue to put a stranglehold on their respective positions, so that's going to be huge. The second thing is the second thing is the guys who have gotten off to the slow start, like Josh Pearson, like Paxton Kling, like Michael Braswell. Paxton Kling's going to be in the lineup on Thursday. Jay Johnson has told you that. Put it in there with a Sharpie. Paxton Kling is playing. He's hitting 182. Can he pick that up against, again, pitching staffs that aren't very, aren't up to par? LSU's probably going to face a Division II transfer on Thursday. So can you get that number up? If you're a guy like Paxton Kling, who is a top prospect, you should be able to do that. Josh Pearson, same thing, hitting 182. That guy's he's going to platoon in this lineup at some point this weekend. Can he get it going? And then Michael Braswell, same thing, man. Look, can you bounce back from a really rough outing? He's done well to put the ball in play. Jay Johnson was asked about Braswell and what he wanted to see from him this week. He said, be himself. Be himself. And play great defense. Jay Johnson said the most important thing Michael Braswell can do for us is play defense at shortstop. So we talked about it, man. He's been a very streaky player. He's been great at LSU in the fall and preseason scrimmages. He's finally hitting a little bit of a slump. The key is going to be he's going to heat up again. When he does, can he carry the consistency with all the new things that LSU has taught him in coaching and changing his stance and his swing and all of that? He's accepted a lot of change. That's led to consistency. Now he's finally hit a slump. When he heats back up, can he carry it consistently over the season? That's what you want to see. So can the freshmen keep it going? And then can the guys who have struggled kind of rise to the occasion and get right spots against some pretty lowly pitching that looks like it's coming into the box this weekend? Then there's a starting rotation. We've kind of covered that a good bit. You want to see the bounce back from Hurd. Want to see Jump just hit those marks, man. 2-3 innings, 45, 50 pitches. Look good doing it and continue his his climb to full strength and where LSU can really take advantage of him there. And then as a pitching staff as a whole, walk number. We talked about this on a show prior. LSU walked 27 in 4 games, but when you really break it down, it's not as bad as that number looks. LSU pitched much better than that. So can they actually shrink that number? If they pitch the way they did last week, I think that they will shrink that number, and that's going to be huge for this team going forward. LSU, this is a spot where they should really be able to flex their muscle this weekend on the mound and at the plate, because they're facing a lineup in Northern Illinois that is hitting, 234, and a lineup in Stony Brook that is hitting 219. And then each team has an ERA north of Stony Brook's is at 9, and Northern Illinois, bless their heart, is at 10.98, basically 11. So LSU should get all 4 of these this weekend. That's my prediction, and they should do it in fairly impressive fashion. I expect LSU to be able to pull away in all 4 of these games, but then again, it is baseball, and crazy things happen. That's going to wrap it up here for Musso at the Box. I know I went long, but we had a lot of information to go through today, man, and I'm glad we were able to do it. So LSU, NIU, Thursday at the Box. We'll have a recap for you and then preview the rest of the weekend. Obviously, those will be much more scaled down previews because we'll have already played a game, but we'll at least know, what arms are left and things of that nature. So that's going to be on the next edition of Musso at the Box. Hit the subscribe button, share the video, like the video, subscribe to the podcast, follow me on Twitter, all those great things, and be here next time on Musso at the Box.